Hello, and welcome to Anti-Fraud in Action. I'm Margot Cella from the Center for Audit Quality. Our focus today is on ethical culture and diversity during a crisis. My guest is Steve Rivera. Steve is Vice President for Global Technical Accounting Advisory Services and Policy at Johnson & Johnson. He leads the accounting policy development and implementation and advises the company's global finance teams on technical accounting and reporting matters. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you.
Let's start with what's critically important to culture today, diversity and inclusion. What's the impact of the Black Lives Matter movement on your organization's culture, and does that pose a threat or an opportunity for change with respect to compliance?
You know, Margo, it's a really interesting question. For us here, I don't see this being a threat to the company. What I do see and what I worry about is more about encouraging folks to really kind of join the discussion about how to be included in the company as far as finance and accounting. I think a lot of, I would say, diverse candidates, women, Hispanics, Blacks, they're looking for a career in accounting and finance, but it's how do they find that path going forward? I could tell you, look, my own journey, being Hispanic, starting in public accounting, it is a tough. It's tough to kind of break through that because not finding folks that look and also look and kind of sound like you. And look, for me, I look where I am at Johnson & Johnson. It took me to be a vice president here in the controls organization. And also, I was even honored to be interviewed by the FASB at a board seat. And had that taken place, I would have been really the first Hispanic board member in the history of the FASB. So, and again, look, I'm not saying that we should have people in these roles just for diversity. You want to have qualified people in there. But I got to tell you, there's definitely a certain personality that folks expect in this profession. And I think there's still some unconscious bias as we think about accounting and finance folks. What is that personality that you're looking for? Look, I have a certain culture being Hispanic. This is how I was born. This is my upbringing, how my parents raised me. But when I go to these conferences, Margo, like just recently, November last year, like 90% of that conference is mostly white male, few females, and I couldn't find a person of color, maybe one or two people out of 600 people in one big conference room. And it really just kind of struck me like, wow, like what's going on and what are we doing to this profession, and how do we encourage people to come back to this? So look, I just think that, I don't think you look, I'm not a kind of guy that checks the box. I don't think you should hire people just for diversity. I'm not one of those kind of folks. I think it hurts us. It hurts folks who are diverse. You want qualified people in those roles, and they're going to do a fantastic job. I share with other folks is, look, I've been on a tough journey. I had pancreatic cancer. I said this once before, and I think it kind of opened my eyes to really rethink and my own self-awareness about what's important going forward. And it actually it gave me the strength to really stand up and really speak out about, what is next for Steve Rivera? Is this all I'm going to be? Is this all for me in my career? And it really took someone to really, stick out their neck and realize what I've been doing, the value I bring. And I think that's what it takes. It takes courage. It takes people to speak up on your behalf and to really be your advocate. And again, that's, this is what is going on today, is that it takes one person to really help and pull you up and bring you to a different place in your career.
That's good. So what can people do to embrace and promote diversity?
I guess what they can do is I would say, is number one, you got to find, you got to be an advocate for someone. You actually got to reach out and individually, like I had a call today with somebody just recently, and to promote that diversity is you have to be a leader and be an advocate for others and to show them to be the example. I think what I'm finding is that folks don't necessarily believe that they could be something more because they don't see representation in the leadership role. So how do I have to encourage that? You could say, look, I've done it. I've gotten there. It might be bumpy along the road, but I was able to prove my worth, my value, and I think it takes that messaging back to this younger generation to promote that inclusiveness. I think that's the issue that I'm finding is people say, but why be a CPA? Why go into accounting? No one looks like me. No one, who do I talk to when I have a career question? No one understands my background, how I was raised, and those are tough questions for other people who are trying to elevate in the profession. And what do you do, and how do you navigate through that career path? Because there's others, folks do have a career path. They have connections. They have networks already, and a lot of folks like myself, when I started back in public accounting in 1984, there was no network. I was it. And so I just think about that, and wow, and I see that same challenges even today in 2020.
Great. So what I'd like to do now is maybe change the focus a little bit and talk about a culture of compliance.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So why should companies prioritize culture during a time of crisis, especially when there's so many other issues that are on the agenda?
I would say the culture of compliance is important because I would say it's about reputation. I think that one of the things being in the compliance role, at least at J&J, I look at the brand name of the company and the reputation that we have. So there's such a connection between reputation. And my thought would always be is that you never want to lose that, your reputation, and particularly when it comes to accounting and finance. It's a small world, and I always go back and I train this on a lot of the young folks who are coming in. It's like the companies that are not here today are the ones who are not compliant, right? You can fix products that are broken, right? You can rebrand things. But once you start losing your reputation of being not compliant and not having a culture of compliance, those companies aren't here today. And I'm not going to say who they are, but we know who they are. And I think that is so powerful as a messaging about why compliance is so important, because you lose reputation. And once you lose your reputation, I don't know how you get it back. And even if you're a great company, you could lose it just because of hiring people, of doing things that are not proper.
So how do you exemplify this strong sense of culture and ethical standards that are at J&J?
I would say if you see something, say something. People come, they feel like there's always a door for everyone to speak up. We have hotlines. People feel open because they believe that J&J has such a great purpose. The things that we're doing today for vaccine development, why we want to lose this great effort that we're doing for folks not being compliant, right? So if they see something not right that's going to hurt employees and hurt the reputation of the company, I think folks feel like there's an obligation to speak up and to further make sure that the reputation is intact. And again, look, without saying, I always go back and I have to always say this, we have a credo. I mean, Johnson & Johnson has that credo that's kind of like you embrace once you become part of Johnson & Johnson. You actually, that is part of kind of, I would say, the guiding principles of dignity and respect for the individual, and making sure that people feel treated regardless of how they look, how they sound, and what their style is. Doesn't matter, it's that respect for that individual that's so important. And I think that credo has kind of it's been with Johnson & Johnson almost from the beginning of time. And we haven't lost our way. That's been kind of our guiding principles, and so important as an employee for J&J to always go back to that, to remind us of what that value is and who we are.
Yeah. So many of us office workers, not just here in the U.S., but around the globe, are working remotely, working from home.
Yeah.
What are the biggest challenges that you see in maintaining an ethical culture in that remote environment?
What I would say, Margot, is constant communication. I'm constantly talking to folks like you, like on Zoom. I mean, not that I'm a camera person or be on TV, but I think that I need to see people. Look, I've always been a hands-on leader. And what I mean by a hands-on leader is I walk the floors at Johnson & Johnson, and I see people, I talk to people. That open door, that like people say, Steve, you're so easy to talk to. That is so important in the compliance role, is that you want people to come in and see you, and they let them and tell and really share what's on their mind. I miss that because I can't do that in this world. So I'm trying to do it somewhat virtually by doing check-ins. How you doing? Checking in. Even if it's like I do these like coffee breaks, you know, and they see a little icon like a little coffee chat, you know, just like what's going on and what's happening. Look, Margot, if you were in Johnson & Johnson with me, you would come to my office. I usually have little desserts in my office. I'm a baker, you know, by trade. That's why I started my career in baking. And my motto has always been like, I keep the cooking in the kitchen, not on the books. That's kind of my that's my little joke to all the accountants out there. So that's that, and they just laugh. They think that's a great little logo. But look, but it really is interesting that, guys, you know, this is what we do to bring in, pull them in. You know, you don't want to be a compliance person that deflects people away, because you want your ears. You want to listen to what the organization is saying. And those are the great compliance people you want around you, because those are the ones that folks are going to come and talk to when they have issues and problems, and that they're going to be scared to talk about things. And that's not, you don't want that environment. So I get all the coffee. I get little coffee drop-ins. I get very much a lot of the video calls every so often, which is great, and it makes me feel like there's still that connectivity going on still.
And so when you're communicating with your team, are you finding that you're stressing how important it is to maintain that culture and that credo that J&J has?
Absolutely, I absolutely, and more importantly, it's even more important now because of the pandemic. We don't want folks to think that there's an excuse to let their guard down. And I've been stressing that. No, guys. Even though we're moving like 200 miles a minute because we're trying to get things done, and we still have to take the time to, I would call it financial decor, right? We still have to whoa, let's slow down. Let's read the contracts, make sure we understand what's going on, and let's take that time. Even if it's another 10, 15 more minutes, I'd rather get it right than be rushed through these things without having the real good insight. Look, Mark, I don't know about you, but I tell my folks, it takes 3 accountants to come up with a decision. And it's a good strategy because it never has failed me. It's a great little way to test the waters to make sure that we got it right. When 3 accountants agree on an accounting position, usually it's good that you're in a good place. And as opposed to one person making a decision, unilateral decision on a complex issue. You don't want to be left alone, and that's not a good place to be.
And you're still able to do that even though you're not down the hall from your key team.
I get on the call, I Zoom somebody, hey, I just read this contract. I read it twice, read what it's saying. This is my conclusion. And they'll say, Steve, I'm lying. I get another person to kind of either chime in or be a dissenter. And when there's a dissenter, that's when we have another conversation. And I tell you, it's a good rule of thumb for any accountants out there. It's like, find a buddy. Find a buddy. You like that, a fun friend, because I really do believe, remember, accounting is based on consensus and it's based on theory, and someone might have a different insight that you might have not have thought about or discovered based on experience.
Yeah. So it sounds like, with your credo and your strong culture, J&J has a lot that they can leverage, but what are you going to do to emerge even stronger coming out of this crisis?
I would say coming out of this is rethink the work that we've been doing. I gotta tell you, after this first close that we've done virtual, we really start revisiting a lot of the work that we've been doing and really questioning, why do we need all this? Really focusing on what is really important, what really matters, what is really key for making those decisions, and really more time on the analysis, I would say. And so and then also maybe basically letting go of things that are really important. Do you really need them? So it's been it's been like kind of a shedding process a little bit, because I think it was maybe it was like almost like it's kind of like stirring the pot a bit to really rethink about processes and what's really important. We have I see folks having their children at home, trying to balance work life. This is stressful. And so knowing that as a leader, why put more stress on saying, I still need the 10 schedules? Well, do I really need the same 10 schedules? Can I do it with 5 schedules? I'm just making it up. But that's kind of the thinking that I know we've been going through to really rethink, and even the timing of some of these things on when they need them, and still be able to still meet the deadlines that we want for our close.
So which element, it's not a real quiz, but which element of a corporate culture would you say is most critical during this time?
I mean, say a culture-wise, what's in culture-wise?
Yeah. A compliant culture, yeah.
I would say, oh God, it's so many attributes. I don't know. I'm gonna leave one out because I say, well, Steve, why did you say that? I would say the culture is, I would say, transparency and honesty. Like I did both. I mean, I would say that's the culture that I think I would say that we wanted to basically really exemplify in finance. Is we want people to connect. We want people to be transparent of what they're saying, no hidden agendas. It's open, it's fluid. And I think that once you get that environment, Margot, I'm telling you, it's like you get a very trusting environment, as opposed to people doing this and giving you like half a story. Like what one of my old CFOs always said, he's a good, again, I like these little sayings, omission of fact is still lying, right? And that's a great compliance. Again, another good, these are things I learned and experienced from leaders and how they frame things. And I think it's so important. I take these takeaways that you get from folks saying, like, when you're in these environments, like think about it. People only tell you half the fact, so they get you to not tell you the whole story. And that's still not what we want. So that's why I'm saying transparency and honesty is so important for me for a culture and to be really have a great compliant environment.
Let's hear what you think are your key takeaways on staying the course on culture during this time of crisis.
I would say, I'd say, please continue to have that continuous communication throughout your organization. I think that's very, very important. I also believe this is an opportunity for people to spend that time. What I'm finding is most people are actually training themselves, going on online training. They would have never done that in the past. And I think that bench strength of building what they do and their knowledge is so important. But something else that really just struck me also that maybe I bring this point up early is, what we do, our mission at Johnson & Johnson is, lives really matter. And especially the folks who are in the front lines, our nurses, our doctors. And I always say this, like everyone that works here at J&J and the people that we touch, everyone's going to be a patient one day. Everyone's going to be a patient. And we want to make sure that J&J is here to support those folks, right? I mean, that's what we do. That's kind of our purpose. So making sure that we ensure that the dignity and the respect of those people are really cared for, regardless of how they look, where they come from, their style, and I think that's so important because we look at patients, it doesn't matter, right? We make drugs and vaccines, it doesn't matter, right? It's taking care of the human population, right? That's how you have to think about it. And look, at the end of the day, as a leader, I think it's really important that we touch base with the people in our company. And I know my leadership is doing it all the time. They call me up, Steve, how are you doing? I do the same thing for people in my organization. Folks need to be contacted just to know that there's some connectivity, because folks are under a lot of stress this time of year, particularly under this crisis, and they've been home. They've been home all this time and not out. So hopefully we make the connection for them, and hopefully keep that stress level down, and take some time off to really relax and kind of and get back to it. But it definitely you need some downtime. I think that's important. So I hope this helps, Margot. I hope we gave you some good insights on what I'm doing, and hopefully give you some insights on what we're doing here at J&J.
You did, Steve. Great advice, great points that you made. So thank you for your time today, and thank you to our viewers. This is Margot Cella for Anti-Fraud in Action.